At 5:19 local time, the carrier's surface picture changes. 3 clean arcs tighten on the scope, then separate. 6 contacts in total, speed increasing, bearings converging, no civilian movement, no random drift, just clear intent. On the bridge, no one raises their voice. They do not need to. Track 6, classify surface vessels. The words come out calm and professional. Screens refresh. Outside, the sea looks almost peaceful. Steel gray water, low swell, nothing dramatic. But inside the ship, the rhythm shifts by a single degree. Just enough to feel, not enough to see. The carrier holds its course. At this distance, appearances can be deceptive. The ocean always seems empty until suddenly it isn't. The contacts close to 20 nautical miles. Their spacing narrows. The formation begins to reveal itself, deliberate, controlled. 2 ships high on the starboard arc, 2 low to port, 2 sliding in behind the wake. Not a parade, not a coincidence. A pattern shaped by people who know exactly what they are doing. Confirm nationality. A brief pause. Data aligns. Hull forms match stored signatures, masked arrays, superstructure angles. The answer returns without emotion. Russian Navy, 6 surface vessels. No visible reaction, no commentary. The bridge absorbs the update and moves forward. The carrier does not turn away. It does not speed up. It does not slow down. 80,000 tons of steel continue on the same heading at the same pace, as if nothing has changed. Because for the moment, nothing has. Below deck, the Combat Information Center hums quietly. Consoles glow, tracks are refined, numbered, time-stamped. Every shift in bearing is logged. Every knot of speed is noted. No alarms, no dramatic signals. The ship remains alert, not aggressive. This is how professionals handle moments like this. At 15 nautical miles, the Russian ships complete the curve. The circle is not tight enough to feel reckless, but precise enough to be unmistakable. Close enough to apply pressure, far enough to avoid crossing the line. No radio traffic breaks the silence. No calls answered. The silence says more than words could. On the flight deck, aircraft remain secured. Deck crews move according to schedule. To an untrained eye, it looks routine. To anyone who understands the situation, it is discipline under pressure. Activity without escalation. Closest point of approach trending down. The report is purely factual. No adjectives, no urgency, just numbers. The carrier's radar arrays continue their steady sweep, painting the contacts again and again. Each return is clear, confident. There is no uncertainty about who sees whom. Everyone understands the balance. Everyone understands how thin that balance can be. At 10 nautical miles, the Russian ships match speed almost perfectly. They settle into parallel motion beside a platform that outweighs them all combined. It is not a direct challenge. It is a statement, a test of composure. On the bridge, the captain watches the water ahead, not the screens. He has seen this pattern before. Different oceans, different flags, same calculation. The order comes quietly. Maintain course, log all maneuvers. No special condition is announced, no posture is declared. The carrier does not need to advertise readiness. Readiness is already understood. Wind carries the low thrum of engines across the water. 6 gray naval ships are now visible to the naked eye, their hulls blending into the gray sea, moving in steady, disciplined lines. Their wakes are clean and controlled. Nothing about this is accidental. At 8 nautical miles, the ring tightens again. This is the point where mistakes can happen, where someone talks too much, where someone moves too quickly, where history can shift because of one bad moment. But that moment never comes. Inside the carrier, systems continue tracking. People keep breathing. The ship keeps moving forward, almost indifferent to the circle closing around it. 6 Russian naval ships, 1 American aircraft carrier. No exchange, no direct words, no one blinks. At 7 nautical miles, the geometry locks into place. The 6 Russian vessels settle into position with mechanical precision. 2 forward on the carrier's starboard bow, 2 offset to port, 2 trailing just outside the wake, riding the turbulence where returns blur and distance becomes harder to judge. This is not a display meant for cameras. It is a formation designed for professionals. On the bridge, the spacing is understood immediately. They're holding station. The report stays calm, purely observational, with no speculation attached. Speed readouts align almost perfectly with the carrier's own. The Russians are not pursuing. They are pacing. The carrier does not mirror the move. No counterturn, no widening arc, no visible attempt to break the pattern. 80,000 tons of steel continue on the same heading, steady, controlled, unmoved, forcing the encirclement to adjust around it, not the other way around. That matters. An encirclement only has power if the center reacts. At 6 nautical miles, the Russian ships begin slight course corrections, small measured rudder inputs that tighten the geometry without closing dangerously. Every adjustment is logged. Bearings update, tracks stabilize. The circle seems to breathe, expanding and contracting by fractions of a mile. No collision risk at this distance, no overt threat, just pressure created through proximity alone. On the flight deck, nothing changes. Aircraft remain secured, elevators stay in place. Crew movement continues on schedule, visible through optics from the surrounding ships. The message is subtle but unmistakable. Routine has not been broken. Below deck, sensors remain passive. No targeting posture, no aggressive emissions. The carrier's systems observe without provoking, record without pressing. The Russian ships respond with the same discipline. Their radar behavior remains controlled. No sudden spikes, no careless sweeps across invisible boundaries. This is restraint meeting restraint. Tension held in perfect balance. At 5 nautical miles, one of the trailing ships edges closer to the carrier's wake. It rides the disturbed water deliberately, testing how much turbulence it can take without losing position. The move is noticed immediately. Track 5, adjusting aft position. Acknowledged, logged. No further response. The carrier does not alter speed to complicate the maneuver. It lets the test play out. Confidence has mass. Here, it weighs tens of thousands of tons. From the bridge wing, the gray hulls are now clearly visible. Numbers remain indistinct, but silhouettes are sharp. Crew members can spot movement on the Russian decks. Sailors on watch, binoculars raised, cameras likely rolling. This is close-range observation, mutual and unmistakable. Neither side pretends otherwise. Still, no words are exchanged. Radio silence becomes its own language. At 4 nautical miles, the circle tightens once more. The Russian ships now sit well inside visual comfort range, close enough to feel present, far enough to deny overt aggression. It is the refined pressure point of naval maneuvering shaped by decades of encounters like this. Inside the carrier, watchstanders do not lean closer to their screens. They do not raise their voices. They do not narrate the moment. Training holds. Professional distance remains, even as physical distance shrinks. CPA holding. Closest point of approach has stabilized. That too is intentional. The Russians are not trying to provoke a response through immediate danger. They are trying to wear one out through persistence. It does not work. The carrier continues carving a clean path through the water, its wake stretching straight and unbroken behind it. Every mile traveled without deviation delivers the same message. You can surround us, but you cannot redirect us. At 3 nautical miles, the encirclement is complete. 6 warships, even spacing, matched speed, precise geometry. From the outside, it looks like a standoff. From inside the ship, it is understood differently. This is a contest of patience, and patience favors the platform that has no reason to rush. No alarms sound, no orders intensify, no systems shift into anything dramatic. The moment simply hangs there, heavy, unresolved, balanced on the discipline of 2 navies that understand exactly how fragile discipline can become if mishandled. The sea stays calm, the ships remain close, the silence stays intact. For now, the circle holds. Deep inside the ship, no one can see the horizon. They do not need to. The Combat Information Center carries its own atmosphere. Low, constant energy, screens glowing, data flowing, voices brief and exact. Every contact outside already exists here, reduced to symbols and numbers that tell the story more clearly than any human eye could. 6 surface tracks, stable, correlated, time-stamped, nothing flashes red, nothing demands special attention. That is the point. Maintain passive posture. The instruction moves through the space without friction. Sensors keep listening, not announcing. Radar continues to observe, not challenge. Every system performs exactly as designed. No more, no less. This is not restraint born from uncertainty. It is restraint born from control. The carrier's defensive structure is layered, redundant, and fully prepared, but none of it needs to advertise itself. No targeting radars break the silence. No mounts move. Readiness here is internal, measured in checklists, long completed, and drills absorbed into instinct. Inside the CIC, no one speculates about motive. Motive does not matter. Behavior does. And behavior is being recorded in remarkable detail. Bearing shifts, speed changes, station keeping accuracy. Quietly, pattern by pattern, a picture is building. Above them, on the bridge, the captain stands with his hands resting lightly on the chart table. His attention stays on the water ahead, not on the ships surrounding him. He does not need to watch them directly. The ship is already watching for him. Reports arrive at a steady rhythm. Track 2 holding speed. Track 4 maintaining parallel course. No active emissions detected. Each update is acknowledged with a nod or a single word. Nothing more is needed. Everyone here understands the stakes. More importantly, everyone understands the procedure. This is where experience becomes visible. A less disciplined crew might feel the urge to answer the pressure, to show resolve through movement, to break the ring, to force the moment into clarity. But clarity is not always an advantage. Sometimes the stronger position belongs to the side that can remain comfortable inside ambiguity. The carrier does not hurry to resolve the situation. It lets the situation reveal its own limits. Elsewhere below deck, other compartments feel the tension without ever seeing it. Engineering holds steady. Reactor output remains unchanged. Air operations stay paused, not because they are forced to, but because nothing requires a change in plan. Normal becomes a tool. The ships outside are looking for signs. More speed, a shift in heading, sudden flight activity, a burst of radar energy. They get none of it. The carrier gives them nothing useful to read, nothing easy to misinterpret. That silence is deliberate. In the CIC, one operator brings up historical overlays, comparing today's formation with previous encounters. The resemblance is close enough to feel familiar, though not identical. No two moments like this ever truly are. Still, the lesson remains the same. The side that controls tempo controls the outcome. And right now, the tempo belongs to the ship at the center of the circle. Minutes pass, then more. They are the kind of minutes that seem to stretch, not because something happens, but because nothing does. Outside, the pressure increases precisely because there is no visible response. The burden shifts. Now the choice belongs to the ships maintaining the formation. Hold it indefinitely or change something. Inside the carrier, no one rushes that decision for them. The captain finally breaks the silence with a single quiet sentence, almost conversational. Let them work around us. That is all. The order changes nothing because it simply confirms what the ship has been doing from the start. Moving forward, unchanged and unhurried. The carrier's sheer mass, its steadiness, its refusal to be shaped by the encirclement becomes the dominant force in the equation. Power in this moment is not loud, it is patient. The CIC keeps logging, the bridge keeps watching, the ship keeps its course. Outside, 6 warships continue holding their ring, engines steady, crews alert, eyes fixed on a carrier that refuses to visibly acknowledge the pressure being applied. Inside, no one celebrates, no one relaxes. Professional focus remains absolute because everyone aboard understands the same thing. When nothing happens in moments like this, it is often because both sides are waiting for the other to blink. And the carrier has time to spare. The first change is subtle enough that most people would miss it. One of the Russian ships on the port arc drifts slightly wide. Barely a degree of rudder, barely a knot less speed. By itself, it means little. In context, it means everything. Inside the Combat Information Center, the adjustment is caught immediately. Track 3 deviating left, speed -1. Acknowledged, logged. No response is ordered. The carrier continues straight ahead, unaffected, forcing the formation to stretch with it. A circle only holds when every point keeps agreeing to maintain it. One deviation introduces strain into the whole shape. The other ships compensate. Track 2 tightens slightly. Track 1 eases back to preserve spacing. The formation flexes, then settles again, but the rhythm is no longer the same. What had looked effortless now begins to require work, and that work shows. On the bridge, the captain remains still. He watches the water ahead as the bow cuts forward, steady and clean. He understands what the deviation means, so does everyone else. Pressure is a limited resource. Applying it takes effort. Sustaining it takes more. Another minute passes. Then, aboard the carrier, something changes. Not a maneuver, not a signal, but a subtle shift in posture visible only to trained eyes. A sensor suite adjusts elevation by a few degrees. A readiness state updates quietly in the background. Nothing obvious from the outside, nothing dramatic. But the message is there all the same. We are not static. We are not unaware, and we are not moving on instinct. The ships around them register it. The vessel on the port side that had drifted wide corrects slightly, then hesitates as though reconsidering. The trailing ship riding the wake eases off by a few hundred yards, choosing cleaner water over tighter proximity. The pair on the starboard side hold steady, but their spacing opens just enough to break the perfect symmetry. The circle still exists, but it is no longer tight. No radio traffic follows, no warnings are issued, no announcements are made. The turning point arrives without ceremony and without sound. It arrives because maintaining the encirclement now demands more coordination than it is worth. The carrier never forced this moment. It simply waited for it. Inside the CIC, the watch team continues tracking in silence. Bearings widen by increments. CPA increases by tenths of a mile. And that is how pressure begins to fade. Not all at once, but gradually, almost quietly, until the formation that once looked unshakable begins to loosen under its own weight. Numbers do not lie. They do not dramatize either. Encirclement loosening. One operator notes it in a neutral voice. On the bridge, no one reacts with satisfaction. There is nothing to celebrate yet. This is not a triumph. It is a shift. Outside, the Russian ships adjust once more. One eases into a parallel track. Another drops half a knot to avoid overlapping wakes. What had been a ring begins to open into a loose arc. Still present, still watchful, but no longer enclosing. The difference is unmistakable. The carrier stays on the same heading, at the same speed, on the same line it has held since the first contact appeared on the scope. It does not exploit the opening. It does not accelerate to widen the gap. It does not turn to force separation. It lets the space return on its own. That restraint carries its own weight. Now the Russian ships face a decision of their own. Tighten the formation again and invest more effort, or accept the widening distance and shift posture. The carrier gives away nothing. No hint of preference. No signal of expectation. Minutes pass, the gap holds. Then it widens. One by one, the Russian ships settle into parallel movement. No longer angled inward. No longer shaping the carrier's path. They remain close enough to observe, but far enough to break away whenever they choose. The pressure phase is over, and not a single word had to be spoken. On the bridge, the captain finally turns his eyes toward the contacts. Just a brief glance, enough to confirm what the data has already made clear. "Continue transit," he says quietly. That is all. No declaration, no final remark. The ship simply continues doing what it came to do, move forward. For a while, the Russian ships remain nearby, more like shadows than barriers. Eventually, their courses begin to drift apart. Slightly at first, then more clearly. The geometry dissolves back into open water. There is no dramatic headline in this moment. No defining clip, no single action to replay. But every Navy paying attention understands what just happened. The turning point did not come from force. It did not come from speed. It came from patience, and from refusing to be shaped by someone else's pressure. The sea opens again, the carrier keeps moving, and the moment passes, leaving behind only tracks on a chart and lessons that will last longer than the wake itself. By the time the distance stretches beyond 10 nautical miles, the encounter is already finished. No signal marks the ending. No radio call declares disengagement. The Russian warships simply ease out of alignment, one after another, until the geometry that once defined the moment is gone. What remains are parallel tracks and widening water. Observation without pressure. The carrier does not acknowledge the shift. It continues on the same heading, at the same speed, its wake running straight and uninterrupted across the sea. From the bridge, the horizon looks exactly as it did before the first contact. Calm, empty, almost ordinary. Inside the ship, systems begin stepping down incrementally, not out of relief, but because procedure allows it. Logs are finalized. Timestamps are verified. Every maneuver, Russian and American alike, is preserved in records that will be reviewed later, stripped of emotion, and reduced to fact. That is how encounters like this truly end. Not with a declaration, with documentation. The Russian ships remain visible for a time. Silhouettes against the water, still close enough to observe, no longer close enough to influence events. Eventually, one adjusts a few degrees outward. Another reduces speed. The last trailing hull fades into the distance, its wake dissolving into the same gray water that erases everything else at sea. No one aboard the carrier cheers. No one exhales for effect. This was not the kind of moment that calls for celebration. It was a test, and tests are measured by outcomes, not reactions. What stands out most to outside observers is not what happened during the encirclement, but what did not happen after it. There is no pursuit. No theatrical display, no statement broadcast into open channels. The carrier does not linger, and it does not turn back to reclaim the space behind it. It simply proceeds, mission intact, posture unchanged. That restraint is the real message. At sea, escalation is easy. Speed can increase, sensors can light up, aircraft can launch. Every Navy in the world understands exactly how to press the next button. The discipline lies in choosing not to. The Russian ships applied pressure through proximity, geometry, and silence. The carrier absorbed that pressure without surrendering its shape, speed, or intent. And when the effort required to maintain the encirclement became greater than the result it produced, the formation loosened on its own. No shots, no warnings, no formal lines crossed, and yet the outcome is still clear. The carrier never gave up control of its movement. It never allowed the encounter to define its behavior. Instead, it forced the surrounding ships to adapt around it, not the other way around. That is why the moment carries weight far beyond the stretch of water where it happened. Every Navy understands this equation. Power is not measured only by numbers or hardware. It is measured by who controls tempo, who decides when the situation changes, and who does not need to force that change. From the outside, the encounter may look almost uneventful. 6 warships surround a carrier. Then, gradually, they no longer do. No explosions, no alarms, no sudden pivot. But in professional circles, the lesson is unmistakable. The most effective response was silence. The strongest move was staying on course. The decisive factor was patience. As the last Russian ship disappears beyond visual range, the carrier's watch rotations continue on schedule. Engineering holds steady output. Navigation checks remain routine. The ship does not mark the moment with ceremony. It does not need to. At sea, encounters like this are not about winning a scene. They are about preserving freedom of movement without stepping across lines that do not need to be crossed. This one ends the way disciplined encounters often do. Not through force, but through understanding. Understanding of limits, understanding of capability, understanding of who blinked and who did not. The ocean closes behind the carrier. The tracks fade, the surface smooths over. But for those who are watching, on both sides, the message remains. Sometimes the most striking outcome is not what a Navy chooses to do, it is what it chooses not to do.